Well, I heard it was bad, and sure enough, yeah, it is bad. We're talking about the 2018 Netflix movie, Swiped. Now, this review is going to contain even less footage than a usual Blockbusters episode because, just like Cool Cat Saves the Kids, the director of this movie has kind of a sordid history of trying to use the YouTube copyright system to bully critics into submission. So even though I try not to use that many clips for Blockbuster videos, there's going to be like no clips of the movie whatsoever. Aside from just telling people to watch the movie themselves and see how terrible it is on their own, which I honestly couldn't do in good conscience. This movie's not even so bad it's funny. The best thing I could do is say, watch the trailer on YouTube and you can see how awful it looks there. But anyway, we're talking about Swiped from 2018. So from what I can gather, this movie, it was at one point on Amazon. Eventually, Netflix picked up the rights to it. This isn't some Netflix original. Instead this was directed by some middle-aged woman who wanted to make a movie highlighting the dangers of dating apps. And while there is definitely a movie that could be made with that subject matter, this movie is basically like The Social Network if it was made by someone who had never had any proper film experience before. So before we get to the more specific details, the basic setup is this introverted, nerdy kid named James, who is basically a Kmart Zuckerberg. He wants to get into MIT, but his family doesn't have the money to do that, so he's going to college. He's known to make apps, and he says that he's had a couple of them, like 17 of them, and they were all about, trying to help homeless people and stuff. Once he gets to this college, he meets up with this guy named Lance and his crew, who are basically just every generic gaggle of fuckboys that you see, either on YouTube chasing clout or in crappy college movies nowadays. They're a bunch of meathead-style fuckboys who are always, chasing chicks, having sex, and then bailing the next morning. Oh yeah, bros, high five. It was seriously giving me flashbacks to, what to expect when you're expecting when they had the dad bro scenes. The amount of times these guys do the generic like, yeah man, yeah bro, yeah what's up brah, yeah it just made my face want to pucker into my head. They're all failing this one class, and I love how they established this because they show that James was the only guy that was actually doing homework, and this was like the beginning of school too. But he's the only one that did the homework, and everyone else in class didn't. And so they decide this guy could probably help us out. So they go to him, and while they're discussing dating apps, they go to him and say, you know what, there should be a dating app that, just cuts out any kind of like, account bios or anything like that. You just upload pictures and then you try to, meet up with people at a specific time at a specific place, have sex, and then bail. And so basically that's what gets the conflict, if you want to call it that, in motion. James doesn't want to do it at first because he thinks it goes against his morals, but then he thinks that he says if he makes some kind of impressive app, then it will impress this one girl that he's really into. This is obviously a setup for what's going to be an obvious twist near the end of the movie, where eventually she's going to find out that he made this app, and obviously she isn't going to like it because of what the app is all about and what it stands for, and that goes against her ethics, and then eventually he does something that wins her over in the end, because this movie is incredibly predictable. So they create this app, they call it Jungle, they get the ball rolling by going to about like 10 guys on campus and selling it as, oh, it's just an app that glorifies anonymous sex. You can just post pictures and, no accounts, you don't have to put any, likes, dislikes, anything like that. Just post pictures of yourself, and then you could, find these meetup times with these people, specific places, in DMs or whatever, and then go there, have sex, and then bounce. They never once think about how hookup apps actually do exist, like Grindr. That's pretty much what this is. It's a more anonymous version of Grindr. I would say that, this is just some kind of generalized big problem with movies nowadays, that they don't know how the internet works. But considering the people that made this movie, I'm more inclined to believe that not only do they not know how technology works, they also probably don't know how a lot of people work as well. Because let me tell you, this movie loves painting broad strokes that, all girls are out for love and all guys are out for sex. It's the same thing as that shitty-ass movie, The Ugly Truth, with Katherine Hagel and Gerard Butler. What a piece of shit that movie was. That movie does the same thing. It does these broad strokes, it does this black and white, mentality of all guys want sex and all girls want love and marriage and shitting out kids. Of course, the movie then tries to defile that by having it like James actually does want to get into a legitimate relationship with this girl Hannah that he likes. And so that's obviously going to start the chain of events that lead to the end of this movie, but we'll get to that in a second. They also throw in this huge subplot about James's parents having a bad marriage, and at one point his mom is talking to her friends at some restaurant, and they reference the app, and they say, oh yeah, it's so horrible that kids these days are using these kind of things, but then they recommend her use it because she wants to go out and cheat on her husband, so she decides to start using the Jungle app. That's the other thing. They at one point say that this app has no age restrictions whatsoever. So not only is this, a way to branch out from teens and college kids to, horny, undersexed middle-aged people, I guess, but there's also tons of horrible shit involving pedophilia that could happen with this app if there's no age restrictions. You think that if they were going to try and mainstreamify this thing, they would think about stuff like that, but apparently not. Everyone in this movie is an idiot. Eventually, Hannah and her sorority sisters find out that James made the app, and they establish that Hannah wasn't really happy with the app because, it was just basically a way to glorify, sex before marriage and all that kind of thing. And it was at that point I was like, wait, so is this a Christian movie? Is that where this is going? No, instead the movie tries to go for this whole new age feminist thing where they at the end of the movie they basically tell him to shut the app down and instead create an app that's targeted for young women, and that it should be about love instead of sex. And again, this movie, it pretty much shames all female characters that just want to have sex, just like their male counterparts. And it basically says that, oh yeah, if you're a woman and you just want to have, just casual sex, then you're basically just a horrible person. I would say they do the same thing for the guys, but I mean, the movie, it feels like they're trying to treat the guys as just generally bad people from the beginning. I mean, that the movie constantly finger waggles and how oh, isn't it wrong that, all men, hashtag all men out there just want sex? That's how all men are, hashtag all men. And it's again, it's kind of hard to paint that as some kind of reality when the main character specifically wants to get into a legitimate relationship. So that mindset doesn't work. I would say it doesn't work when you have female characters that just want to have sex, but no, those characters are portrayed as, just dumb, and they don't know what they want, and, they're not educated or intellectual women like, the other female characters in the movie. So this entire movie has its own little special brand of finger waggling and, preaching its message in your face. I didn't know about this whole part of the movie. I went into it thinking, oh, this is just going to be some dumb, knockoff Social Network / dumb young teens coming of age movie. But the fact that they try to make it a message film as well as what the director then tried to do when it came to certain YouTubers making videos about her movie, that was when I was like, oh shit, we're dealing with we're dealing with the next level Derek Savage right here. To sum up how the movie ends, it goes full Hallmark mode, and they just wrap everything up in a nice little package as cleanly and, as unmessy as possible. James talks with the girls, at the sorority, and they say make the app for young women who, want love instead of sex. And then he notices that his mom is using the app, and so what he does is he deletes the app, and then she says that she'll use other dating apps instead. And then because they establish he's some kind of master programmer, he's able to disable all dating apps. He just goes onto his computer, punches in some code, all dating apps are down, and everyone's it just cuts to a bunch of people all around the city or whatever, at their phones oh man, this app ain't working, I'll just try another one. That's not working either. I know they established he was really good with technology, but what kind of Jimmy Neutron-ass boy genius level shit was that? Then jump forward a little bit later in time, we see that the leader of the fuckboys that got James to create the app for them, his name was Lance. He's a changed man now, and he's now in a committed relationship with the girl who they established at the beginning was the uber slutty best friend who was just dumb and, she just wanted sex all the time and she didn't really want true relationships. Once again, with what the movie's trying to peddle. But yeah, her and him are now in a committed relationship. It was kind of weird. It was oh, they're together now? Because last time we saw them, he was trying to hide her from his dad by pushing her out the window of his dorm. So yeah, I guess they're in a relationship now. That was a whole other thing I forgot to mention. They have this it's not as major as James's parents subplot, but they kind of have a thing where his dad is, a meathead who runs through a bunch of girls who are half his age, and he doesn't like that, and he's I never want to become like that. And it's just So why are you acting like that then? Like, that felt like that was going to lead to something, but that subplot just goes butt fuck nowhere. And of course, the new app is up and running, and James and Hannah are now in a better relationship together, and who cares? Now, I remember when I first heard about this movie, it was when I still had Netflix, and I actually tried watching it in full. I got 30 minutes in, and I was like, this is so amateurish and bad, I'm not watching the rest. But eventually I was like, you know what? I kept hearing people talk about it, so I was like, all right, yeah, sure, I'll try and actually watch all of it. And sure enough, it's bad. It's just as bad as a lot of people were saying it was. This movie is nowhere near as so bad it's funny as something like The Room, or Birdemic, or Cool Cat, or The Amazing Bulk. It's nothing like that. What this movie has in common with those movies, though, is that it's incredibly amateurish, and in some cases it is so bad it's funny. But for the most part, it's mostly just kind of boring and, like I said, condescending, and that's the thing that just makes it so painful to watch. I mean, this is like film student level filmmaking and script writing. I mean, they do that thing that they did in The Room, where you'll have characters who already know about each other talking to each other as if they've never spoken before. Like, you know, oh yeah, you're my best friend. You're my best friend. You know that? We've been friends for so many years. They do dialogue like that half the time, and it's like, nobody talks like this. There's so many takes where the actors are talking and you just swear that it feels like they use the first take and not any of the other ones, because like it's that level of amateur. There's tons of scenes where the audio is all fucked up. They use like music that's way too loud. Like whoever mixed the audio, they really fucked up. And the audio, half the time, is royalty-free music. Like, they use music from the Nutcracker just because it was copyright-free. Maybe it's because I've seen too many movies that have tried doing that just to avoid copyright. They just use royalty-free classical music like that. But either way, man, I mean, that's cheap. Especially when it's not even a scene that takes place at Christmas and you're going to use the Nutcracker suite. Going back to the audio, there's plenty of times where no one is mic'd, or it feels like there was no boom mic whatsoever, so that, you know, there'll be characters talking outside and like the wind is raping the audio. Scenes where characters are standing in an echoey room and like the audio is just like echoey and all kinds of fucked. There's scenes where characters are standing outside and the color saturation is a bit off, so everything just looks a little too bright. And this is how you know you've messed up. There are several scenes where the camera goes out of focus, and it's like, all right, come on, man. This wasn't going to go to theaters or anything, but really, you're going to... Again, it doesn't kill to do second takes. Last time I've seen camera fuzz that messed up, it was when MediaWiz did his October videos, and nobody wants that kind of shit. And I really didn't want to harbor on this for the whole video. I wanted to talk about the movie itself. But yeah, this lady who made the movie just went full Derek Savage mode and, you know, tried to bully her critics into submission. She would go to tons of people saying like, oh, don't spoil the ending, as if like you couldn't see it coming from a mile away or anything. She told them to use trailer footage instead of using footage of the movie. But the most infamous example is she tried to give multiple copyright strikes to some teenage girl who did like a reaction review style video. And yeah, she was like the harshest to her. She would constantly like use insulting names, but just like Cynical Reviews before me pointed out with his video. You gotta find it interesting that she was really harsh to this girl who, you know, she was just doing a simple video, you know, pointing out some of the flaws with this movie. You know, she wasn't being harsh, she wasn't, you know, wasn't name calling or anything like that. And then you get to male YouTubers who did videos on this movie, and she was less harsh to them. If anything, she told them, oh, just cut down certain clips to this length, or, you know, don't include the ending, all that kind of thing. She never tried to avidly copyright strike these people or anything like that. Maybe, just maybe, it was because those YouTubers had bigger sub counts, and going after those people would look bad for business. But when it's a smaller YouTuber like that one girl was, I guess she thought she could get away with that kind of thing, huh? You know what though? The occasionally so bad they're funny moments that were in this movie is still probably going to be more than what we're looking at next time. Because next time on Blockbusters Show, for our grand Earth Day special, we're going to be watching the eco-friendly comedy from the 90s, Biodome, starring Pauly Shore and Stephen Baldwin.